Kia ora, I'm Eve. I work at Arts for Health doing art therapy. Welcome to another art therapy video. Today our video is using some soft clay, and we're doing a process where we join two different images and make a bridge across them. So today our process is called Build a Soft Clay Bridge. So we're going to be starting in the present and making an image that relates to the present, and then we're going to be building a bridge between this part of our present and some imagined uplifting future or an uplifting memory from the past that we have, and connecting those two. Okay, so materials that we need. So the main thing for our process today is something called soft clay, soft paper clay. So they come in packets like this, soft paper clay. So it's a very interesting material. It's very smooth and silky and soft and easy to work with, and it's very responsive to anything you're doing. So this is a wonderful material. If you don't have soft paper clay, any clay will do. So pottery clay or even Play-Doh will be great too. As you can see, it's a very moldable, movable, interesting material. One thing to note is that some people do find this sort of material a little bit stimulating, overstimulating for their senses. So I've known some people that aren't too keen on this sort of material, but often it's a very enjoyable sensory experience. The other material that we need is just paper and pen, so we can put down some words and make a poem at the end. So those are our materials for today. So we're going to be starting in the present and making an image that relates to the present, and then we're going to be building a bridge between this part of our present and some imagined uplifting future or an uplifting memory from the past that we have, and connecting those two. So the idea of our process is that we're accessing and exploring an uplifting aspect of the past or of the future and bringing that into our present, and exploring what it's like to build a bridge or steps between where we are now and something that was uplifting in the past or in the future. So this process is all about exploring what would it be like to access uplifting resources from another part of our life. One other thing about sensory, malleable, soft materials like clay is that they encourage us to move a little bit away from finer details, because we're using our hands and we don't often have tools to add specific details to this soft clay, and it encourages us to explore sometimes bigger elements and to move a little bit more with our senses and our emotions. We're kept in our body, in our senses, and we're moving towards bigger elements rather than specific finer details. So those are some things that come with the material that we're using, and we're moving towards bigger elements rather than specific finer details. Though if the details come through, of course that's always fine. Okay, so our process today. So the first thing to do is to set up a piece of paper, which is just your base for your image, and then you're going to get out your soft clay and just start working with it as a way to start ourselves off and get into our body a little bit. One of the things that you can do at this point is start mixing colours together. That can be a really good way just to get us started. As you're mixing those colours and we're just sitting down to start our image, it's a good time to do a little check-in with yourself. So what are my thoughts? What's happening in my emotions? How does my body feel? Even how does my spirit feel, if that's something that works for you? Okay, so the first image that we're going to make with our soft clay is some sort of symbol and colours that relate to our present in some way. So this could be a symbol or colours that relate to your emotions right now, your thoughts, your physical experience, even your environment around you. It could be something that's happened recently. So something that pops into your head that relates to the present, and it doesn't necessarily have to be positive or negative. Neutral is a good place to go too. So you could be doing colours and symbols for today or this week. So the symbol and colours that you're putting down, they could have specific meanings, something symbolic that they represent, or you could be working a little bit more abstract and intuitively and expressing feelings as they come and come through your fingers into the soft clay. Then we're going to try and think of something in the past or imagine something in the future that's uplifting. So an uplifting experience or feeling or thought or people, some element of your life in the past or an imagined element of your future that is uplifting, and we're putting down colours and symbols that relate to that uplifting experience. So now we have two images on our page. We have one related to the present and one related to an uplifting element of the past or the future. The next thing to do is to build our connection, our bridge between them. And the idea here is that we're exploring what is it like to go from the present and access something uplifting from the past or something uplifting from the future. So we're going to use our soft clay to build some sort of connection between your two images. And there's no rules about what this connection has to look like. It could be blobs of soft clay, it could be smeared soft clay, it could be rolled soft clay, it could be spread out in any way that works for you. So we're exploring what is it like to connect these two experiences or imaginations. So as we've done before, once we've finished our image, we're just going to take a little pause, because right now we're in our senses, we're in our body, we're in our emotions, and maybe in our intuition. We're right in with our image and what was going on with it, and sometimes it can be good to step back and take a little pause and breathe and check in how you're feeling. The next thing we're going to do is write down a couple of words that relate to your present, a couple of words that relate to the future or the past image, and a couple of words that relate to the bridge. So as we look at the image, what words stand out to you? A reminder here that we don't judge what words we're using here. We're not judging our artwork. We're just seeing what words come into our head. How could you describe what you see? What memories come to mind? How does it feel when you look at those images? Then we're going to use these words to make a poem. So choosing as many of the words as feel helpful to you, and you can literally write them down in a list, in a line, or you can add extra words to develop it and build it out into a bigger poem if you choose. And then the last thing to do is to read through your poem. It can be useful to do this out loud so you can hear what are the words that have come from the image that you've made. One final thing to do is just check in with how you're feeling again, and it can be quite interesting to leave your image and your poem out, maybe on the table as you continue with your day, or as you come back the next day. It can be quite interesting to see your image and to reflect on it again with fresh eyes, or to read your poem again with fresh eyes. So those are our steps for our process today. Okay, so I have finished my image, so here's my soft paper clay image. I've got my poem that I made from the words that I added as I reflected on the image. So you can see that my image is quite smeary and blended and very intuitive. It's not very clear exactly what's going on to someone else that's looking at it, and that is okay. So remember that art therapy is all about our relationship with our image, and it doesn't have to make sense to someone else looking at it, and it doesn't need to look perfect or beautiful necessarily. So down here I've got my present, so this is the part that I started with. I've got some colours and shapes that explored the present, how I was feeling. And you can see from the way that I've been working the material that I was in my senses and in my intuition, and that I wasn't necessarily trying to represent specific elements or shapes that tell a story to someone else watching. So down here is the present, so the colours and shapes and movements and smearing that represented the present for me. And then over on this side was the past, an uplifting memory of the past. So this was a memory actually of myself outside when I was younger in the sun, bouncing around and doing some gymnastics and flips out on the grass. So there's the memory from the past that felt uplifting. Here's the bridge in between, and there's a couple of steps and little creatures that are going along. You can see that as I've gone, my image has become very connected, but they did start a little bit separate, and then they got connected with a lot more smearing and colours that worked together. So something that I did for my bridge is actually use colours, and I put them together in different ways. Colours from the memory and colours from the present, and blended them together a little bit. And that was one way that I worked on my bridge. Another way that I worked on my bridge was literally moving my finger from one side to the other, and I also brought in some shapes and little creatures from one side to the other. So there are lots of different ways of bringing elements and resources from one memory to the other, from one side to the other, and exploring what it's like to access the resources from one side and bring those to the other side. So something that I did notice is that my present part of the image was three-dimensional, so it stood out from the page a little bit, and my past memory, uplifting memory, was actually mostly two-dimensional. So those are some of the words that popped up, so I'll just read out some of the words. So for the past memory, we've got two-dimensional, bouncing, clarity, physical power, blending, sun, sky. For the present, we've got three-dimensional, layers, farm, indistinct, growing, land. And then I put some words together for the bridge as well. So we've got smearing, traveling, sensory, world, continents, expand, pulling, and I wrote down both are real. So then I put those all together and made a little poem. So here's my poem. Efficacy and bouncing, two-dimensional clarity and physical power, sun and sky blending. Three-dimensional mixed indistinct layers, a farm growing eggs. Smearing, traveling, meeting, a sensory mixed world. These continents expand, still blending. I am pulling, appreciating, accepting, both are real. Sun, sky, land, sky. So that's my poem about my image. And the poem and the time of reflecting with words gave me time to bring out some insight and some learning from my image, and to bring what happened in my senses and in my emotions and in my intuition. It brought it to a little bit more clarity for my thoughts and for my understanding of my image. So that's my image that I've done. I hope you are able to access some clay, maybe paper clay or clay for pottery, and make a few images and connect them together, add some words and see what it means to you. I hope you have a really enjoyable time. Thanks so much for watching. Watch our next video, and ka kite anō.